So, Eddie, welcome to CTO Confessions. It's great to have you on board, sir.
Thanks so much, TC. Good to be here.
Brilliant. So tell the audience that are listening to this session, who are you, what do you do, and who do you work for?
So my name is Eddie Pecker. As you already know, I'm 49 years old, lived and worked in 4 countries in the past 7 years here in the UK. Currently, I'm working for APEXX Global. It's a small startup in the payment space. Yeah, joined about 6 months ago as Chief Product and Tech Officer. Excited to be here.
I know you're in the payment space. Okay, so I did a little bit of homework on APEXX Global, and what I want to try and do is use a small part of this podcast to learn something about that industry. Okay, so let's see if we can kind of make this industry sound sexy and interesting for other people. You know, because we all use payment, and many of us don't know what's going on there. So I've got some questions here because I thought about it. I thought, well, you know, what's with payments? It's just payments, you know, what have you. But on the website, there was all kinds of different things. So payment orchestra. What does that mean? Payment orchestra.
All right. So payment orchestration is making everything that is behind the scenes, that is very fragmented, very difficult, seem smooth and simple for the end user. That's the orchestration. That's the beauty of orchestration. To make it sound maybe a bit more interesting to our audience, it depends what excites you. If technological challenges excite you, I can tell you it's a very fragmented world with a lot of legacy systems involved, a lot of players, a lot of different regulations. So to help the merchants, the ones that deliver the goods, right, and use our services, to make their experience very smooth and the end user experience very seamless, very transparent, that takes a lot of technological work or technical work behind the scenes. If you love solving problems, if you love making complex things simple, that's absolutely a fascinating space to be in.
Wow, yeah, it sounds fascinating. As you say, there's a lot of this going on all the time. I used it this morning, buying my coffee. And there's different kind of, you say it's a fragmented system. So reading the website again, you know, you've got acquirers, you've got alternative payment methods, which are obviously the different routes which you can take. You've got buy now as well, so you can buy stuff on a credit of some sort, I imagine.
Correct. So I'm still new, okay? So I'm learning, so please bear with me. Essentially what happens when you go on a website and you want to book your next holiday, for example, right? You go through the process, you choose your perfect holiday, and you get to the point where you need to put your credit card in or choose any other method that you want to pay. It could be buy now, pay later if you're interested in credit or anything like that. And then what happens behind the scenes, we get this request, and then we choose the best way to process this request with all these third parties, because the website that you chose to book your holidays on works with multiple partners across multiple different geographies. Some of them are based in Europe, some of them are in the US, elsewhere in the world. And we choose the best way to process your transaction, so in such way that it goes through first time. So you know, sometimes you have a problem with the card, and the most frustrating part is that you need to go look for another card and put it there, and you don't really understand what actually went wrong. So we take all of this away, and we get your transaction through different stages. Everything happens behind the scenes, super fast, so you don't really know how complex the system is behind the scenes. And then you get your transaction through first time. So you as UTC are very happy because you booked your holiday. The holidays provider is also very happy, bringing you all the way to payments, and then losing you. That would not be very amazing experience for them either. So we are bringing all these things together, and we're helping you as an end user to get best experience possible for the merchant to finalize the deal and get the money as fast as they possibly can as well. So that's what we do.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that we're not aware of, many of us, is the fragmentation of it. I can imagine there's lots of different providers, lots of different APIs, lots of different transactions, and also there needs to be some audit it to be able to track where things gone. Because I imagine there's kind of feedback loops that are coming back as to anomalies in payments, and did that really happen, and that wasn't right.
Exactly. So there's a lot that can go wrong, obviously, as with any complex ecosystem. There's a lot of fraud in the world, so we need to be able to identify what is the legitimate transaction and what is the transaction that we want to potentially flag and say something doesn't look right there. We want to be able to report this transaction back. We want to be able to deliver the results and say this transaction went through with this particular acquirer or any kind of gateway on this particular date and time. And then when it gets processed by the issuing bank or the acquirer, we get the reports back and we present them back to the merchant. So, and obviously it's also very regulated industry. A lot needs to be, we need to be able to prove things that these things actually happen at this certain point in time. Right? So as you mentioned, auditability is a very important aspect.
You say it much better than I do. I can't say the word. And I need to practice.
6 months to practice.
That's right. Yeah. And I could imagine that, these systems down, there's a cost. I mean, nobody's going to die kind of thing. So there's a resilience needed here from a financial perspective. So if anything going to go, is there kind of resilience and kind of fallback systems that allow you to kind of pick up where if something goes wrong?
Amazing. It's an amazing question. Are you sure you're not from the payments? You did your homework, 100%. So we address this challenge on multiple different levels. First of all, ourselves, we are fully cloud-based system. We have multiple regions, and whenever anything goes wrong in one of the regions, we have the other regions to pick up the traffic and ensure that our system is 100% available. You said it right, nobody will die. However, in payments, the expectation is that you're always on, that the business is always there and you can always process the payments whenever needed. But that's what we bring to the table. That's our tech systems availability. Sometimes the third parties do not provide the same level of resilience. And then you need to choose, do you fail the transaction? Not your fault, but doesn't matter. The end user experience is still not amazing. Or you take this transaction from the player that could not fulfill it and put it towards somebody else. And this is the core of orchestration. We don't only choose where we go first try, but if the first try is not successful, for whatever reason it is, we choose another player and another player and another player until we are successful.
Wow, love it. And this all happens without the customer knowing anything.
Absolutely. Everything happens behind the scenes within milliseconds.
And this is why, I don't know if people check me out on LinkedIn, I'm always shouting out for engineers, because nobody appreciates all the hard work that goes on behind these systems. It's a lot more sophisticated, a lot more nuanced, and et cetera, et cetera. So, shout out to engineers or everywhere, for the hard work that you do and make our world actually kind of move and keep going, Kudos to that. So I want to now come back now. I want to shine a light on you, Eddie, okay, on your leadership style. Because this is, as I mentioned just before the podcast, it's one of my passions. How do we lead in the space, and the importance of the quality of leadership and the difference it makes to organizations, to people, to yourself even, because you matter too, So tell me about some of the challenging concepts that you have around, leading your teams and maybe looking after customers as a leader.
It's an amazing question. I think we share the passion. I'm equally passionate about leadership, and I always work the people angle first. Always. I'm a technology leader. I love technology. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in tech. I wouldn't be CTO, right, or CTPO. I could be similar to you, Chief Talking Officer, maybe. That's a different kind of CTO, but not technical. So tech is definitely one of my passions. But equally, I think people who work in this space and work with the technology, that's even bigger passion of mine. So to me, bringing out the leader in everyone, or at least those who are interested in leadership, helping them become best leaders, helping them become best versions of themselves within workspace or within technology space. That's my biggest passion. That's the real passion.
Yeah, love it. And I guess there's kind of competing needs that come from you. You know, you've got the technical angle. I love the word you used there, people angle. I come from the people angle. On top of that, there is the technological angle. There's the getting stuff done angle as well, because the business obviously needs that. So how do you find that balance between them? Because I guess it's sometimes one will try to take precedence over the other. You know, you're going to get stuff done. You know, how do you balance that? Because it's a complex space.
It is a complex space, and I guess it's one of those where one tool is not enough. You have to have multiple tools in your toolbox. And the leadership is not just one kind of leadership. It's a very situational leadership. That's how I like to think about it. In certain cases, you have more time, and the situation allows and requires you to go deeper on the personal stuff, on interpersonal communication. In certain things, once you build that team and you build that relationship, you can just go and say, you know what, this particular one, we just need to do it. We need to move fast. We understand each other. Let's go and do it. It's a different kind of leadership. It's less of a coaching one, more of we need this done. Okay, so you have multiple tools, and the secret is using the right one for the situation at hand. And it's something that some people maybe have it from day one. I had to learn throughout my career. How do I learn all these new tools, all these new techniques? How do I behave in certain situations, and how do I improve?
Yeah. And I can imagine that transition, you know, coming from tech into the leadership role. It's a very different paradigm. Fun question for you on the leadership front. Yeah. So what do you find most natural to you and goes most smoothly for you in the kind of leadership space, and also the most challenging parts of leadership that you experience?
Yeah. So what I maybe enjoy most, or which parts are the most fun, is when you have great people on your team that you're not the smartest person in the room, who bring different angles, who bring different perspectives, who in certain cases definitely technically much better than you. That's the best fun. And when you get together with a team, could be a small, it could be a big team, depending on the challenge, and you try to break it down to something that is very easy to solve. So this transition, however difficult it is, that's the biggest fun for me. Working with the people, trying to bring things that originally we maybe thought are too difficult or maybe even impossible to tackle. All of a sudden they make sense, and all of a sudden we know what to do with it, and the team is excited. So that's the best part.
And what's the most challenging part?
To find the right balance between coaching and mentoring, and allowing the time and the space for the team to bring their best, to get up to speed with certain challenges, and the need to do things right here, right now, super fast. Some delivery cannot wait for this. How do you balance the two? That's very challenging. How do you know where is it enough coaching, or you don't really have time at all for coaching? How do you switch from one to another? That's the most challenging part, I believe.
It reminds me of the 5 dysfunctions of team, the kind of underlying layer, trust. And having that trust layer allows people to maybe give you the feedback loop, what is actually needed in the space, you know, and also for you to be able to, as the leader that's become more directive, to actually say, well, no, actually, we haven't got time to think about this. This is what I think we need to do, and trust that they will speak up if it's completely off at a tangent.
It's one of my favorite books. Sorry to interrupt. It's one of my favorite books, and the trust is probably it's foundational aspect of any teamwork. Whenever I get the opportunity to get on the new team or I join a new company, that's the first thing you work on. Trust. How do you establish trust that the people can bring themselves and give you feedback as well? When being CTO doesn't mean you're always right. How do you ensure that they actually tell you, well, thanks for your perspective. We think we should be doing something else.
Yes. A shout out to the book, definitely. I'm not being sponsored by Patrick Luenzi, The 5 Functions of a Team, but it is a really good book. Any leader out there hasn't read it. It's really simple. It's very quick to read, I believe. In fact, you can just watch some of the YouTube videos out there that are going to give the essence of the book, and it gives you a very quick kind of checklist of where the problem is, and you've got to start with trust. The lower layers, if anything is not working at that layer, then everything else is going to be harder work, if not impossible. So that's good. That's good. So coming now back onto, you mentioned earlier on around finding the right team, people that are better than you. I always find that quite interesting because, we've all got a bit of an ego. And having smarter people in the room is a little bit of a challenge for some people. I know I sometimes find that challenging, though I realise the wisdom of doing that. So we've got to put our ego to one side. So how do you find the right people for your team then? Well, what's the... because when you're actually taking somebody on, it's a huge investment, It's almost like, I'll use the analogy of putting money on a table, So if you're paying somebody like, I don't know, I'm just going to make up a number, right? You're paying them £80,000. We're in the UK here, so £80,000 per year. If that was put on a table and that was stolen, right? In other words, it didn't deliver the value what you were expecting for that. It's a big problem. You'd call the police. So when you're picking the right people for your team and that investment, that huge investment, you need to get it right because otherwise it's going to be lost investment. How do you get that right?
Before we get to the solution, I'll make it even more interesting for you. How about you put £80,000 on the table, but what is getting lost or stolen is around about £300,000 or £400,000.
Oh, okay.
Because the moment that you introduce someone into the team and it's a wrong person, the impact is not just that person coming and going. The impact is on the whole team. And that whole team, if that falls apart, that's way more than just 80,000. Sticking to our salary example. But it goes sometimes way beyond the team's salary because the opportunity cost, the impact on the business is usually way higher than the collective salaries of its employees. So the challenge is a lot bigger. And depending on the role you're trying to fill, the impact can go through the roof of right decision or wrong decision, right? So now that we established it, we are not talking about 80,000. We're talking about hundreds of thousands and maybe even more. It's really important that when you go through this mutual exploration, and I love calling it mutual exploration, there needs to be a match. Both sides need to want to work together, right? So whenever I go through this exploration, I'm trying to see, are there basic traits present? And it's not necessarily that we fully agree on the flavor of agile or anything like that. It's more about what's the attitude, what's the approach, do we agree on the basics, like listening to each other, can we work together really in a tandem? And of course, I'm also looking to the fact, would that person be stronger than me in any aspect? It can be, would he be better team leader? Would he be a better technologist? Because being a CTO and then depending on the situation, leading different sizes of organizations, sometimes hundreds of people, you can't and you don't want to be in each and every technological detail. You want the team to be able to address any technological challenge with your help, guidance, leadership, whatever we want to bring to the table. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a person who would not be a replica of Eddie, although that would be nice, I'm looking to bring someone who could complete me or be better than me in at least one aspect. And if that is not happening, then that's probably not the right choice. That's one aspect. And then the second one, I'm bringing someone to the team. I always love the team to be involved. So I get multiple different points of view. It's never only Eddie getting exposed to the new person. I bring my peers, I bring people who are already on my team, and then all together, we sit together and we discuss the basic question that I always ask. Do you see yourself working well with this person? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter how genius this person is, how technically amazing they are, or how good of a leader they think they are. If we can't work as a team, it's not a good match.
So thank you for that, Eddie. Next question I've got for you is that, in your experience, what developments or outcomes in your field have surprised you the most? What have been those da-da moments?
Oh, that's an interesting one. You know what? I will probably not be very unique in this, but we all heard about AI. We all heard about NLP, or natural language processing. And I myself even had the opportunity to work in this space many years ago. And it was fascinating to read the news here and there, like, oh, we had some progress in this space and this progress in that space. But the way it broke into our life and the speed with which it's absolutely conquered every possible aspect of what we are dealing with. And yeah, I think it did conquer. We go that on the personal level. We use these tools like for everything at home, from emails to better communication, to writing documents, to asking about certain topics that we don't have a lot of knowledge of, etc., etc. So we already use it in so many ways. That was a bit of a surprise. So it was already there years ago, brewing kind of, and sending signals. But the boom that it created and the speed with which it broke into our lives, and all the different aspects of our lives that it already helps us with, not to say dominates, that's amazing.
And it makes me think of what the tipping point was, because as you describe, it's been brewing. That's a beautiful word for it. It's been brewing for a while. It'd been around, I've worked in the industry many years ago as well. And then it just seemed to there seemed to be a few elements that seemed to get added to the mix, and then it just became spectacular. So yeah, maybe that's a different podcast, but any ideas of what that blend was? What was the final ingredients or set of ingredients that kind of made it happen?
It's an amazing question, but I'm probably not the best AI scientist to answer it. But I know that years ago we tried to do things that today would sound basic. Things like extracting some entities. Now it's a bit technical and a bit boring, but extracting entities from text, right? So trying to analyze the unstructured data. Then we heard the news that someone developed an interesting model that allows you to translate from one language to another in a kind of easier way than before, and to go from any language to any language. That was another interesting stepping point of what I got exposure to. Then, I don't know what exactly happened since then, and how we got something as amazing as Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, where you can ask the question like, go and do this analysis for me, and it comes back with very impressive first draft. So that's a little bit of an enigma to me.
When I've chewed on this, I was thinking: is it just obviously the infrastructure and the model and the algorithm that they use, but also it's the critical mass of knowledge that they trained it with? I think that was the Herculean attempt at trying to give it as much information, because you don't want people coming to it and then getting the wrong answer or not getting an answer. You know, it's got to be usable in pretty much every context. And I find that fascinating, because sometimes I go in, well, early on when it first came out, I was testing it to see where it wasn't going to give me the answer. And it seemed to always have an answer for something. I'm thinking, oh my God, this has kind of got it covered. I can't think of anything that I can't ask it, you know?
But you have to admit, it probably did excite you to find a little inaccuracies here and there. Oh, I'm still better than this.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, we all know in many systems, in many definitely systems that are based on data, if you put the wrong ingredients in, the chances of getting something good on the other side of the pipeline are not very high, right? And if we train our models on wrong data or inaccurate data or very bad data with bad intent, and what you get, if you're not careful enough, what you get is the amplified bad data, amplified inaccuracy. And the real magic has been happening in the last probably 2-3 years since they first broke into our lives, trying to distill what we do or do not train our models on, or even if we do take everything in, how do we know that is actually true and present better answers, and present more accurate answers? That's a big, it's a big challenge. I believe it still remains a big challenge. When it became better, I feel it became better.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And as you say, it's impacted everything. So the question now is that coming back to the company APEXX that you work for, how is it changing the space there?
Or in more ways than one, I would say. The way I see it from the tech team perspective, right, and that's my remit. That's the part of the company that I'm responsible for. There are multiple ways we can leverage AI, or we can leverage all this advanced technology. Probably the most basic one would be leveraging it to expedite and amplify our development capabilities. So it's not a big secret. The engineers, ever since we had the Google or Stack Overflow, we already started consulting with others, right? Even before AI broke into our lives. So how do we bring that amplified power to our development environments, to each and everybody's laptop, without spending a lot of time going on all these forums and Googling and finding the right answers? So the new environments, the new development tools that can help us expedite the development. So they suggest you the right snippet of code. They suggest you the auto-completion that is more accurate than before, etc., etc. So that's the most basic one, but that's very, very powerful one, because you can put it in any industry. You can put it in front of practically everybody. You don't necessarily need a super experienced engineer with a lot of experience, like a lot of mileage, to understand whether it's good or bad, because it's not really architectural. It's on the lowest possible level. So that's one space. Definitely, we're on transition. We are bringing all these different tools. At the same time, the appetite is way bigger than this. So we're looking into bringing AI to help us move faster where boilerplate code takes a long time to produce. I'm trying to answer this without going into too many details. So yeah, I hope it's not too convoluted. But essentially, in many things like integrations, there is a lot of documentation to read. There is a lot of boilerplate code that is being repeated from one integration to another with slightly different flavor. This is the classic example where AI, can bring in a lot of value. Reading the documentation, 500 pages for a certain integration, that would take an average person a good few weeks to read, understand, distill, understand what is actually needed, etc., etc. For AI, that's a simple task. And then get 80-90% of that boilerplate code done for us That's an amazing advancement. And this is what we are aiming to explore and harness the power of AI. That's another interesting space. And then, of course, I mentioned before that we make a lot of decisions behind the scenes, the likes of how do we exactly process this transaction? Do we process it with this acquirer or another? Do we go? Do we play in this geography or another geography? All based on the information and the setup that we have, of course. How do we make this even more accurate? How do we make this even more powerful? How do we make this even more real time? That's another space where we are looking to bring machine learning or AI. It will depend on how exactly we want to address it. That's another space. So multiple different opportunities, multiple spaces where we bring this in. Really exciting.
Yeah, I was hoping that you might say something really controversial, like, "Oh, we don't need it," kind of thing. Yeah, but that was more of a.
But I don't believe in it.
So yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's touching every area, and there's loads of use cases. It's an assistant. It augments our personal programming activity, but also the organizational one as well, monitoring the systems and seeing opportunities for improvement and making decisions for us. I guess the difficulty here is that some of the decisions it helps you make, you're going to make, because it's not deterministic. It's kind of based on the data that it's been trained on. So it's not linear. It could be that it might choose that. And that's tricky.
It is tricky. And that's why I distinguish between different levels of impact and different areas where we bring this the superpower, if you like, in. On the lowest possible level to increase the speed and accuracy of the coding, that's probably the safest place. Then when it comes to places like integrations, that's equally something that works so well. We already saw some use cases elsewhere. But when it comes to more important decisions where accuracy is really, really important, that's where we would like to take time and see and compare, right? And A/B test what we currently have with the new development, and we will improve it until it starts beating our existing solution, right? So that's where comparison and being patient, not to jump and just do something that is based on passion alone. That's where it comes to play, where you are passionate about it, but you're also conscious of the impact that it makes, not only on our system, it makes impact on the end users, on the merchants, and that's definitely something that we take into account.
So the follow-on question to that then is that, when you're developing new features and functions for your system, you see, I imagine you've got a backlog of things, ideas, and extra services that you can provide, and the numbers of transactions you're probably dealing with are kind of like pretty colossal. So it's a moving system. How do you decide what features you are going to bring in, and how do you inch that into your existing system? Because the last thing you want to be doing is fixing errors that have been created, because once it goes live, it's not quite working the way you expect. It kind of scares me, actually, being a software engineer myself, is how, when I worked on embedded systems, you could go into a test area and try some things out, and then you'd be confident that it would work. But yours is a moving system. It's flowing. It's a flow of transactions happening all the time.
It's a good question. But it is definitely one of the challenges. But you asked multiple questions there, so let me maybe one by one. Right? How do we make a decision what we do or do not introduce into the system? In certain cases, it's just a given, because we already work with some of the biggest brands in the world, big enterprise customers with a lot of transactions, a lot of payments being taken every minute, every second. So we need to be very diligent and very confident in what we are bringing to the system. But when they come up with certain requests and they want to introduce more players into the mix and they want to work with more partners, if we already have these partners on our on our dashboard, that's amazing. It's an easy one. But if we don't, we definitely take a look at this very seriously, and we try to accommodate whatever we can. Sometimes it's more flexible than this, and then you think, is it really aligned with my strategy? Is it taking me where I want to be, helping all the other merchants, helping all the companies that we haven't even come in touch with, and make their life easier? So if it is aligned, that's amazing. We do it. If it's not aligned, it's a difficult conversation, and you cannot predict the outcomes. Sometimes you say, you know what, it's not fully aligned, but I'll do it for different reasons. And sometimes it's a difficult conversation that our support teams have to have with the merchants, and come back to them and explain that there are potentially alternative solutions that we could potentially point towards or help them with, but not necessarily they are part of our platform. And it is a difficult one. And then, of course, there's some ideas that we have to bring new features, to bring new capabilities. We launched a lot of new capabilities in the last 12 to 18 months, improving our routing. So all of the things that we discussed before, cascading from one acquirer to another. If the transaction doesn't go through, we split transactions. We do a lot of this stuff, and we launched 3 or 4 new really important capabilities in the last 12 months. And they all came from the team, right? So these were product developments. They were not initiated by the merchants, but of course they're all for the merchants and they benefit from them. And then you asked the other question, right? The other part of the question was, how do you bring this into the mix and ensure that, well, nothing breaks? It's a live system. You're right. It is a live system. And the expectation that we are 100% up, never down, right? And it is a big challenge. So to me, we are working as a team to bring different ways of working that allow us to minimize the planned downtime. So to me, in an ideal world, I don't have planned downtime at all. Never. I can always deploy whatever I need to deploy without any downtime. I can upgrade my databases smoothly, and I can deploy new features right with zero downtime. We are successful in most of the cases, so we don't have a lot of planned downtime. Sometimes it is still difficult. And then you have to communicate and you align and everything along these lines. But it's something that we try to minimize. And then, of course, the quality question comes in. Fine, so you did this. You know that there was zero downtime. You deployed it. It's all great, but the quality is not amazing. And then you broke something. Working payments requires real discipline. You cannot just deploy from the engineer's laptop. It's not that I suggest any industry should accommodate this kind of behavior, but really working payments with expectations of your merchant that you're always up. Nothing can go wrong. It's impossible for things to go wrong from the merchant perspective. That brings a lot of responsibility. Puts a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. So quality processes and the approaches, how we take this, we also expose the merchants to some of the pre-production environment, so they can also go there and play with our products even before they're released. So there are a lot of practices that we put in place to ensure that the bad things do not sneak in. And if they do, we immediately roll them back as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, I can imagine it's fascinating to actually see one of these rollouts happen, and also the seriousness of it, because you don't want to create a lot of work for yourself, because there's obviously backtracking and fixing the problems that have been created. But I can imagine it's. In fact, I've worked on some projects where things couldn't go wrong. I won't mention names because that's not it's not my place to. But it was. We were watching some of the engineers as they were, ready to deploy, press the, deploy, go from a testing area into a production area. And, people were wincing. They were like, hoping that it would kind of work. And that's not, fingers crossed, toes crossed. Everybody cross your fingers. That's not a good place to be in. You got to have a real sense of confidence that it's going to work. Yeah.
And that's my target. That's what we are working with the team to achieve. I don't want to cross fingers because it's not very comfortable to code like this, right? But jokes aside, I think in 2025 we should be able to deploy with confidence. We should be able not to cross our fingers, toes, tails, and everything else, and have good confidence in quality that we put in all of our frameworks and procedures and whatnot, and all of the practices, to be able to go live any given moment with any given feature and to know it's going to be a successful feature.
Yeah, good.
So that's the target.
No, thank you for that. It's really interesting to see a light into your space on that front. I've got a question here around technical debt. That's actually one of my passions. I find technical debt fascinating, especially with legacy systems as well, because we don't get to rewrite everything. I know a lot of software engineers out there would like to kind of start again and build the next iteration. How do you deal with that? Because balancing technical debt and new features, as you just spoke about, is always sometimes dealing with your technical debt is actually much more valuable than actually adding a new feature in. What's your comments on that?
I love thinking about technical debt, similar to mortgage. You can buy a house without a mortgage, can't you? It will just take you quite a lot of time. So it's a shortcut. Similarly, technical debt, when you want to deliver something fast, you create technical debt, you cut corners, you say, I'll revisit it a bit later, and that's how technical debt gets created. But then the secret is in the question, do I repay my mortgage fully, 100%, and ensure that I never take another one? Or as long as I pay my monthly payments, I'm actually okay with having it. And that's the real question. So in technical debt, if you don't have any, it means you are moving too slow. It means that you potentially will never buy the house, or potentially will never go live with a new feature, new system, new product, everything. If you have too much of this and you neglect it for a couple of months, years, decades, then your house might get repossessed. Or in our case, your system might just break down and you will have no system whatsoever because everything becomes so difficult. So similar to mortgage, it's really important to pay attention to it. Maybe you can skip 1 or 2 payments, maybe, depending on your situation, but you cannot completely neglect it. And that's where the conversation comes in, and we try to understand, okay, so these are the features that we want to deliver. These are the benefits. And of course, there are merchants waiting for these features, etc., etc. But equally, our merchants want to be able to benefit from our amazing features in the future as well. And they want us to keep the pace of delivering new features, not only for this quarter. They probably want us to deliver new features next quarter and quarter after that and for many years to come. So to enable that, we definitely do need to invest certain amount into repaying our technical debt. Equally, if my system goes down, none of our merchants will remember any of the amazing features we delivered because none of them are available. So these conversations are very important conversations, and for product and for tech people, these are important conversations. These are important trade-offs to understand. And it's also our job, it's my job in the business, to educate everybody else on the importance of repaying our technical debt. And there are multiple different practices that you can put in place. So I know that at Amazon, they never go above 80% capacity of the team. They never plan. You can plan for 120% capacity. If everything goes well, that's amazing, right? But they always plan for certain things to address, certain capacity to address the technical or unexpected stuff. And I really love this practice. If I don't have it on the team, I make sure we start the conversation and we start introducing this. It's good to be able not to use it if you don't need it, but to plan for it. And more often than not, you have enough debt to accommodate way more than what you allocate. But the regular payments into that mortgage or repaying technical debt, that is very critical. And these are conversations and it's the education that I'm taking all my teams through. How do we extract value out of this? And sometimes there's a whole sprint or the whole month going into repaying technical debt.
It's a great topic. I think it's really important. I've heard of and in being involved in projects where the critical mass of technical debt was so huge, all you were doing was actually trying to dance around it. You weren't actually doing anything new. It was just firefighting all the time and what have you. So absolutely, I really encourage tech leaders and just techies out there to look at it. And the interesting thing that you describe is actually it's part and parcel of the system. You know, if you haven't got any, then you're probably being a bit overcautious. So that's a really good takeaway from you. Thank you for sharing that. So I nearly forgot to bring this topic into the space, and I'm quite shocked, right? Which is cybersecurity.
Oh my gosh, one of my favorites.
It's important in every aspect, but this is money, and there's payments, and there's lots of it, and it's a magnet. Okay, so it's probably got a gravity like Jupiter. Okay, in terms of attracting attackers and people trying to manipulate the system. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that personally, Eddie?
So putting the personal stuff aside maybe for a moment, let's focus on the professional side. And I'm sure none of these bad actors are listening to us today. So fingers crossed we don't jinx anything. But you're right. We do take security very, very, very seriously. We have expertise in-house. We have many partners that we work with. Obviously, we have external and more objective good players that help us. They help us by keeping us honest. They run the penetration testing and they do the analysis of our vulnerabilities. And everybody has. We all use third-party tools. We all use different systems, right? And we all have technical debt, or many of us do. So, of course, we have others coming and helping us identify those weak points. And the real secret is not to neglect them. The real secret ingredient is whenever it gets identified, act fast. And there is no delay. There is no hesitation. Certain things have to be addressed. And then there is no question about features, about anything else. If there is anything serious happening on that front, that's the bread and butter. We cannot deviate, and we don't want to deviate a single millimeter from just being the best we can in that space. We're taking it very seriously. And of course, we have trainings for all of our engineers. What does it actually mean to develop secure code? We have all different controls in place. Let's not discuss all of them here, maybe, because maybe some of the actors are listening. But of course, and our system and our cloud deployment is structured in a way that makes it more difficult for bad actors or bad people to come inside and steal any of the sensitive information. So it is a very important topic for us, 100%.
I'm curious. Bad actors are going to do what they're going to do. Okay, it's in their nature. And I guess they want to make money. Is there a system where if they do find a vulnerability, they can come to you first before they use it for their own means or other people's means, that they can say, look, we found something. Do you want me to tell you about it? And you're going to look after me type thing?
These are good actors. These are not bad actors.
Yeah, okay.
These are the white hat hackers who go poke around, try to find something that is not to the level or to the standard that needs to be. and then they come to you first and they ask for a certain reward. The bad actors would just go and try to blackmail you, right? It's not like we would be looking after them. But to answer a question, yes, our security team is always there, happy to listen, happy to have a conversation. If it's something that we are not aware of, not working on, then we can have it's a different conversation. But if it's something that we already know, and either we could disagree on the assessment, of course. But if we think it's something new and it's really important, then we'll have a conversation how we mitigate this, but also hopefully have a partnership.
And how often does this happen? I'm just kind of curious as to. I mean, you don't have to, if it's not a good question to ask, but I'm really interested.
It's a good question to ask, but I can tell you that in the last 6 months that I've been with the company, it hasn't happened. So I'm maybe, fingers crossed. And we already established that keeping fingers crossed is not the best way forward, but we are hopeful that we put the right controls in place.
And this comes back to my comment earlier on, championing engineers and the work that, we do. There's all this stuff going on, all of it going on all the time. And I personally find it fantastic. When I do my payments, I'm always thinking about what's going to go on behind the scenes here and where's that going off to and how is that being protected. So, but yeah, cybersecurity is absolutely full on. I can imagine, again, without wanting to bring in too much personal feelings into this, I can imagine it's quite high on your radar in terms of making sure things are watertight and people are addressing it. Yeah.
And you know what? Let me bring maybe this back to our team conversation. In many organizations, cybersecurity sits in one place, engineering in another. They don't particularly like each other, right? These are troublemakers. They always come with some requirements, etc., etc. But that's not my view. I'm happy to include them. I'm happy to bring them into every important conversation. As a matter of fact, we have cybersecurity team present in all of our architectural reviews. They are aware of all features that we are going to build, not build, and then they have to approve it retroactively. That would be the bare minimum, of course. But we bring them on board way ahead of time, so they are fully aware of everything that is going on. They can contribute, not just review, but contribute to the right architecture, bring all the right concerns into the mix so we can make it work well first time. I really love this collaboration. I really love bringing them together and making them part of my team.
Yes. I think that's the interesting thing. When you actually have teams that have a little bit of friction, there's a little bit of warmth or rather hotness in between the friction. It actually does create a great emergent ideas. Even though it's a little bit painful, as long as it's not suffering, right? The old saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. It's good to have that. It's good to have that friction and that banter, maybe even. If you can turn it into humor, in constructive humor, then the better. But it's a good point you make there. Not to have harmony isn't always what you want, because that usually means people are having those tough conversations.
It's good to have these different perspectives. It's good to have these sometimes challenging conversations. Consensus is not necessarily what you want to achieve. But having good conversation and agreeing on the way forward, that's important. And we can agree on different levels. It could be an agreement on the team level, it could be agreement on the executive team level. But we do have to agree on the way forward. And I'd rather bring it to the team level and solve these frictions and solve these challenges as early in the process as possible.
Very good. Here we go. There's a question for you before we move on to the closing arc of our time together, unfortunately, which is, what's the most unexpected and unusual request you've ever encountered as a technology leader, as a CTO?
I guess it won't be very unique here either. Can you go live tomorrow? With this particular feature, right? And there are probably multiple examples to bring it maybe into slightly less anecdotal context. in one of my past organizations, we were working on massive refactoring, if you like, or technical debt project, and we were working on a big chunk of a really huge monolithic system which we needed to extract and rebuild and whatnot. We'll not go into all the technical details, and we had to roll it out to multiple markets. And when I say multiple markets, it's not one or two. It's more like 15, 17, with some of them being multi-billion-dollar euro-pound markets for the company. And we had a little bit of unrealistic expectation that we could go live with this full rework across the board, across all of the markets within 3 to 6 months. That was, I would say it was funny, but it wasn't. It was a very challenging situation, obviously. And we went live, but it took us 6 months to go live on the first market, and then 12 months to complete the whole project. Yeah, but the expectation to go live on 17 markets within 3 months, that was a big of that. Yeah.
And I think this is a common one for tech leaders and in the tech space, maybe with any boundary between different functions of an organization, is a misunderstanding of the complexity of the work that another division does. So, for example, business seeing technology as almost like a tap. They do clever stuff and then you turn it on and it just kind of runs, and it's not appreciating the severity and the consequences and the effort needed to do certain things. Previously, in my experience, when engineers were requested on a team, they would literally throw warm bodies at the team and saying, "Here you go, you got another person." You're thinking, what can I do with this person? They've not got the right skills. It's not. We're not asking them to dig a hole here, kind of thing.
So the transition from physical to creative intellectual work definitely required us as a team, as the community, right, to adapt and change our approaches to productivity. This whole aspect of productivity. Oh, yeah, we can bring more people. That's not always beneficial. Actually, in many cases, it's to the detriment of moving fast. In certain cases, in certain stages of an initiative or project, it is beneficial when you already know everything that needs to be done. You have all the work fully articulated. You split it to chunks, and hopefully people are coming with a similar background that can be onboarded very fast. You could potentially benefit from more people. But when you are exploring, or when it requires really deep understanding of a topic, bringing someone into the team just creates disruption. And it's part of my job, part of our job on the tech side, to bring the rest of the business on the journey, help them understand, and also offer the way forward. That's how I see it. I don't want to come and say, well, that's impossible. 3 months, no way, and that's it, end of story. That wouldn't be a very engaging conversation, would it? Instead, we can lift the curtain a little bit and show this is a little bit of a taste of what we are dealing with, and these are the reasons we are proposing a different approach. I see it as part of my job, to come and share this understanding and bring the rest of the business on that journey. And that's how we ended up with, yes, we will go live in 6 months, not in 3, in 1 market, not in 17. And this is our plan. These are the reasons, and this is our plan, how we go from 1 to 15 in the remaining 6 months. And that's the complexity that we will need to introduce into the system to support it. And once there is understanding, the chances of having better collaboration and actually the other parts of the business do their job better, I see them being higher.
So as we come to the closing arc of our time together, I'm going to offer you a wish from the tech genie, okay? The tech genie is obviously the tech genie, okay, in the technical space. What would you wish for your people, for your industry, or just in general from a tech perspective?
Oh, that's an amazing question. The magic moment, or the genie question. I love it. I love it. So how do I ask for something that is really, really big, right? But still doable, or kind of genie doable? Look, I would love to be able to transition from where we are now, right, with some technical debt, some maybe gaps in knowledge or in skills in the team, to the place where I would say, you know what, I don't need to spend a lot of time on technical debt, or maybe at all, and I can just focus on amazing new features and capabilities that I have plenty on my list. That would be amazing. That would be an amazing jump into the future.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, it kind of made me think about the advent of AI and being able to look at the code. Would it be able to recognize what parts of the code are technical debt?
It's not that big of a challenge to train the model to a good standard. So that reading the code and understanding, oh, look, there is something bad going on there. And if you have a conversation with more experienced engineers, right, or engineer, and show them a piece of code, and you ask them, it's a very common question on the interviews, at least it used to be, and you ask them, what would you do differently? Right? Depending on their experience and how well they understand what you're dealing with, the answer could come just like that. Well, this is something that we could bring maybe a design pattern here. This code doesn't make any sense. We have a lot of repetition here, or we are hitting the database 20 times instead of one. All of this, and it doesn't take a genius. So definitely with having access to good standards and training the model on good code, and then feeding it enough with not so good code and providing it with the feedback. I believe it's one of the challenges that AI can definitely help with very quickly. If it's not capable of doing it now, I would be surprised, but it definitely will be able to help us in the very near future.
And then that feeds into your, knowing, do I really need to worry about this right now? Is it kind of okay? Let's move on to some new features,
Yeah, being pragmatic. Can I live with it, or should I address it? Is it one of those payments that I can and want to skip? Or actually, no, I absolutely need to address it for whatever reason that is.
Very good. And what's your final gift to the tech leader audience as we part company? What would you offer as a parting comment?
I would probably give an advice to aspiring leaders or aspiring technological leaders, right? I once was given an advice, and I want to pay forward, okay, if it's okay. The advice is, try to improve or increase your circle of influence in a positive way, okay, or the impact you make by bringing the solutions wherever you can. Be part of the solution wherever you can. So the advice that I was given was a bit controversial. And there you go. Maybe towards the end, we will mention something controversial. The advice that was given many, many years ago, being a first-time manager, is that senior leadership doesn't want to hear about problems. They want to hear about solutions. Yeah? So bring the solutions. It definitely played an important role in me thinking and improving my own kind of skills and approaches and attitude. But then I worked on this more, and I thought about the second part. That's not 100% correct. I do want to hear about problems. I don't want to talk about problems. I just want to invest in trying to find a solution. And if I need the help, I need to be explicit about this and be more forthcoming and say, I need your help. So be honest about it. So when you have a challenge and you have a solution, that's brilliant. That's amazing, right? That's how you really increase your impact and you grow in the organization, or in general, you grow professionally. But even if you can't do it, it's absolutely fine. come and bring your analysis and say, I need your help. And that in its own right is a massive step forward.
Nice. That's a great pay forward. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really important one. So listen to that audience, do raise your voice and let people know, and share what you're seeing that maybe other people aren't seeing. Thank you for that. So thank you for your time, Eddie. It's been wonderful having you on CTO Confessions.